have some questions. Now, when we listen to people talk at times, we hear them expressing and trying to tell uh, and trying to live the isness practically. You hear people say it's better to move on, to forget about the past. However, when you take the new presentation ideas or knowledge out there, people recoil. So what I want to ask is there a way of putting the message of the new nowness of the allis so that people can connect with what they already have an idea of?
Okay, so that's broad spectrum. Okay, so you have to, here's the idea. I always take it one person at a time. I don't try to bring in the masses, okay? That's political and religious and spiritual, okay, ideas, where they try to get the mass idea, okay? That's not real. And look at yourself and look at everybody here. It's one person at a time. So you take one situation, okay, one situation at a time, and that can demonstrate a lot. But you don't try to consider or think for everyone. That doesn't work. And you wait to see what happens too. So give me an idea. We're going to have some fun here. Give me an idea of one person that you've related to and what the ideas with them or their attitudes are. Just one person, okay, specifically.
Okay, I've tried talking to a couple of people about the new presentation. And they seem not to get what I'm saying. I try to put it the best I can, but they still recoil. I don't know whether it is fear or what. But then in our normal conversations, their ideas about life connect with what you're saying, living in the isness practically. So I'm doubting, is it that I don't put across the this idea in practical enough terms, or is there, or is it only the element of fear of embracing something new, like the new presentation, or what? Is there a way you can help us by some explanation connect with these people so that they see what they already know and they express in their ideas? Why is this linkage, this linking with the new presentation ideas so difficult for many? For let me not say many, but for the people we interact with, it's difficult for them to connect with the ideas. Yet they when they talk practically or do some things, you find that they are living in the isness. So what is wrong? What is actually the matter? I don't know how to bridge this gap.
It's cute, Charles. Thank you. No, I appreciate your position there, and yeah, we're going to figure this out, Charles. It's going to take time, just like all the years you were in the corporation. It takes time to understand these things. And that's the idea. So when when people approach me, because of how things are set into motion now, okay? And again, you decide your adventure. Each person's going to do it different. And so my position now, because I'm relating to most of the people here in some particular way, so I'm always focused on, okay, let's get this part going, let's do this, let's do this. So that's my focus now. And individuals, so much, I let them come up. So here's the idea, and that is that let's say I'm talking to somebody, and let's say they do ask me about the new presentation. Well, it just depends upon the person. First of all, just like when Lila came into the group here, I asked her, I said, well, what do you want, Lila? What is it that you want? You see? And I may ask that question. Because again, see, when you're asking the question of somebody, you're bringing them in. You're not telling them, okay? We're not telling them how to live. We're not telling them what to do. That's not the idea. Like the sun shining, it's not telling anyone. See, our position is the same. Always, if you're in doubt about anything, just stop and focus on the isness or the sun. The sun represents the isness, okay? Just like I represent what's going on with this isness and the boys here, okay? And the reference that I'm creating. And so just stop for a moment, just kind of be nothing, and just, okay, what is the sun demonstrating? So that's an idea, but that's not the answer, is it? So first of all, you want to hear from the person. You want to hear from these people, if they're asking about this. And then I just take it from there little by little, but it comes to a point after maybe 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, I don't know, it could be hours and days you're talking to them. Just depends upon the person. If they're interested, if they keep asking questions, they're interested. If they're making statements, it's like, well, I belong to this path, and I believe this, and I was in this. And if they keep making statements, then that's where they're at. Okay, they're stuck with their statements. You see, they're not interested in looking at something new. So at a certain point, I'll just say, look, if you're really interested, start reading one of the new books. You have to do your homework. You have to do your homework. So again, we are not obligated for people with their free will to decide what they will about what we are presenting. We're not after people. We're not chasing people. We're not after members. We're not after the masses. All we can do is present it. Again, that's why it's called a new presentation. If it was collecting people and getting more people, which is, yeah, that would be great, because it's really, see, what's so cool about this, and it does take a lot. See, it's not literal. It's a recognition. It far surpasses all that. And for the most part, most people will never see it. Seriously. They really won't. Because it's a recognition beyond what you can recognize. And very few people will see that. So where is it that you start? That's why I created all these projects, because I realized that, just the books alone are way too much for people. Paul's stuff with Eckart's a lot easier. That was grammar school stuff. That was easy. Why do you think he got all those people there? And the people came and gone. And why do you think Joni's got all those people there? With the knowledge they have, with the reference material that they have, okay? Which is now supposedly sacred writings, whatever, okay? Words on paper. Because it's the babysitter stuff is what it is. Now we're getting into the reality life is, and it's far too real. So how do you explain that? You cannot do that in a literal sense. I basically take the position that these people are not going to understand it, okay? Because they must utilize their free will to understand it. See, that's not my part. I cannot decide that they are going to understand it. I cannot decide that I'm going to make them understand it. I've went down that road in the past, many, many years ago when I was in a corporation. You know what? doesn't work. You can't drag people along. It becomes to where they must recognize it for themselves, and they must have the intent to do so, just like you. And in some way, the boys picked you because they saw that the real side of yourself has the intent to recognize this, and eventually it comes into the personal self. And even then, it's a toughie. Again, my daughter was a higher initiate during this lifetime, and she passed on and then came back as the daughter, and she was a higher initiate. I knew her personally. That was Helen Fry. But now she's not interested. You see? It's free will. So that part we cannot interfere with. So it's already a given that they're not going to understand it, and that's real, and that's not being negative. They're not going to understand it until they decide they want to understand it. And they have to initiate that free will and be motivated to do that. So that eliminates your obligation, you see, because you're not to be obligated. What is Joni doing now with the membership? She's making the Risas and the Vahanas and all these little knuckleheads out there feel guilty and obligated to get more people, and basically ordering them and intimidating them, and they in turn intimidate the members to step up, donate, give money, whatever it is, Yeah, it's a whole military action is what she's doing, and she's got bigger plans on the real side. I see it. She's part of the one world order and the takeover. We are not there. We are not any of that. Again, it's the new presentation. It is a presentation, but it's like the sun shining. It's already everywhere. That's the isness of everything. But the individual, and this is free will, Charles. We really respect free will. And they're thinking that we're not, that we're the evil ones or whatever. And it's really them that are militarizing the world. This is why I say things like I do, using the Joni's Corporation, but I also talk about the political and religious system and the whole thing that's going on here, because everybody's being railroaded into a one-dimensional view. And just like when this lawsuit is going on, these lawyers are going to make sure that everything is one-dimensional. And this is going to be very interesting because they're going to go all the way back to Paul. That's what they're going to do. And I'm going to creatively bring in, and it's going to be up to people with their free will to decide, what they're going to decide for their life to be so. And it's really very simple. Again, I just simply tell people, ask for Zartars. That's all they have to do. But you know what? They won't do it. Just like the car thing with the water. They won't do it. See? So, going out and picking up paper, will they do it, Charles? You watch how many people hem and haw and resist just to do that. Yeah. But they'll sit and moan and complain about their personal life. And so, again, that's not a criticism. We all go through this. We all go through this stuff. And so, sharing this with others, it's a huge challenge. I see that. But here's the idea. Stop trying to think for others. Yeah, that's an old habit. Just like, that's the God idea. The God idea with religious people is that, God loves us, okay? So these people proclaim this. Okay, I never say the is loves you. I say the all is love, but I don't say that the is loves you, okay? That's different. That's like a command. I don't do commandments, all right? And so that becomes different. So when people use the old God idea, they're trying to, convince others of that, God loves you, Jesus loves you. You want to look to Jesus. You want to look to God. The Mahanta loves you. You want to look to him. He's your savior. You see? That's the old God idea. There are no saviors. The Mahanta thing is fake. The day that Paul left, it was done. That was it. Okay? The boys were still there. Yes, the corporation was still there, but there was the takeover. But the boys were still there. Yes, they were assisting certain individuals to a certain point. Then at a certain point, just like George related yesterday or the day before, it was like 95 or something. It doesn't matter. It's like it didn't seem to work anymore. That's because they took you to a certain point, George, and then they let you go because they babied you for so long, and then you were to figure it out for yourself. So if you were to stay in the membership forever, well, that would be your choice. You see, it's free will. They're not going to baby you forever. So this is where we are now. The reality is that, just like when you're an adult, you step up, you work, you do something. And yeah, I like the challenge, and it's not going to come out perfect because free will has so many variables. And so, in a way, we kind of want to tone things down. And that is, the new presentation is a reference to something that you need to recognize. It's not going to be totally or partially or just, and actually very, very little explained literally. See, this is a literal world. This is reason, logic, and literalism that is taken over, just like militarism. It's all taken over. That's what literalism is. People are taught this framework, and they expect right and wrong answers and things like that. Kind of that identity, you might say. And yeah, it works to a certain degree. Just like the piston engine works. But there are a lot better things like flying saucers that don't need fossil fuel, okay? So it works to a certain degree, but then it's limited. And so again, the language, the process, the communication that we have here, when you look at this overall, really take a look at it and see all the variables of it and what does make sense accordingly. But above all, it's the individual with their free will. You have to recognize that when you're presenting this. And that's where that's where they usually just say a few words. And it's like, okay, figure it out. And that's really what it is. But you at least have to have the desire. You have to be motivated. Then they see that. Then they will stick around little by little. And certain people they can see are very special and are very motivated. They will do a lot more for them, So again, it's like if you had children, you had 5 different kids. Some of them do whatever, but there's that one, he wants to excel in a particular way. And let's use sports as an example, okay? And he really likes football, all right, whatever. So you really work with that kid. Now the other 4, they don't care. So can you push them along? It's like, hey, let's all play football. And the other kids go, we don't want to do it, Dad. But this one, it's like, I'll play with you, Dad. I'll throw the ball back and forth. So you work with that individual, you see? And this is how the boys are too, because he's motivated. And so you try and motivate the other kids for something, to do something. If they're not, but at a certain point, they got to find out for themselves, or they don't, because they have free will. You can't keep gearing them in a certain way. You can't keep pushing them, you see? Then there's resistance, and then there's this backlash. Yeah, it happens all the time. And so it's a fine point. Sometimes you just got to let people go through what they do. So presenting this to others, it is very simple, but at the same time it's huge because we're all huge. We're huge beings. And so again, I basically consider, and I don't hold to this, okay? So people will say, well, Duane thinks that no one's going to understand what he's saying. That's not what I'm saying, okay? But I already know that by the very fact they're asking me, they don't know, okay? So that's real. I start off with that, until they, you might say, prove to me that they do know something. And as they do, then comes the relationship where, we're willing to share more. See, that makes sense. Yeah. So you start off, I try to find out where the individual is at. Now, I've got a neighbor across the street that took book 2 and read it, okay? And he talks a little bit about it. And he comes over here at night once in a while, and he's usually kind of sauced because he goes to the bars downtown, and he's, I don't think he's quite my age, he's in his 60s. But he sits and he goes, he just like talks to himself while he's talking to me and says, I don't know what to do. I don't know. I stay up every night and I watch TV and, I just don't know what to do. Well, I can't tell him what to do. I can't do that. And, I throw in little hints once in a while, but realistically, I see he's continually making these statements. So there's a difference between a person asking questions and a person making statements. So step 1, what we do is we present something out there. And so right now, the example is Facebook. We get a lot of response from Facebook. People like or dislike Facebook. Again, it's not about like or dislike. It's at least a medium that you can present something to. That's how I see it. And I've tried many mediums, and I like Facebook. It's fun. And so that's an example. And so you'll do it in your own way. You'll figure it out in your own way. And all you can do is present it and then see who shows up. And then sometimes if the conversation with people that etc., entails it, fine. And just like you, when my wife was a teacher, she was a 2nd, 3rd grade teacher. And for a while there, she was asking the kids, do they fly in their dreams? And so she got various responses from the parents. And a couple of the parents, one in particular, said, "Oh, you're teaching black magic to my child." Again, you got to test it. You're going to get all kinds of stuff. Be ready. Like I'm saying, you got to test it, but be ready because, again, everybody's going to have their own interpretation, but there are those that do squeak through and do see something else. Yeah, it's so cool. And I said this before, and that is when I was with my daughter, I took all the time I could. You know what we talked about? Her dreams, what she saw, her dreams at night, her relationships with the real guides. My daughter told me phenomenal experiences. Phenomenal. But, it's like it's all gone because, it was for that time. I wasn't writing at that time. But she told me such wonderful things. She said, "Oh, I saw this field of flowers, and then all of a sudden, each one of the guides just appeared, from the flower, and above it stood on the flower, and just, little magical things like that." Children are very sincere, and you could just listening to her was awesome. So when you can find people, and it's 1 in a billion, it's 1 in a million that comes forward, like Kelsey and Ava and Chris and others here, it's exceptional. And they're stepping up and they're doing something. You have a life here, and it's going to go very fast, very, very fast. And my daughter's 33 now. And I hardly ever talk to her. And it's going to go very fast. Take each moment. Every moment's precious. And listen. And so again, presenting this, Charles, it's a huge challenge. But, like the sun shining, it's awesomely unique. What else is there? Hey, yes, you have your job. You have your personal life. Does it make sense that comes first? Or the whole of life? How awesome it is. Endlessly awesome comes first. You decide that. You decide your intent. You decide your choice. And most people, their personal life comes first. And they will soon end up with nothing as they have in the past. And it's a choice. Yeah, it's a huge challenge. I like it. And again, the courtroom drama that's coming up, it's going to be a huge challenge with Paul and everything. I'm going to say my part. I'm rewriting history. I like the challenge. And even the people that hate me, hey, they're still supporting what I'm doing, yeah, whether they know it or not. Because the whole of life is not affected by like or dislike, okay? But the consciousness in creation is. That becomes the difference. And people are subject to that, whether they know it or not, they are still subject to it. So I'm going to rattle their cages and say certain things and make certain statements because, again, they're adding to the demise of what I'm also living in myself. So presenting this to the world, yes, it's a huge challenge. And that's why I backed up and I went into the water, the air, the oceans, etc., what we're doing with the vessel project. And then at some point recognize and realize that it's everything. We're doing everything now. Every single thing that comes up, we're doing it. Because that's how it is. We're not segregated. It's just not about staring at Harry's picture. Yeah. And it seems kind of funny, but it's ridiculous. This is where it's gotten to be, to where all these people in the membership, they're marching to the idea that, oh, it's really Harry's picture. It really is. Joni has done an excellent marking job of brainwashing people, but they're thinking they're going out there just like soldiers with the U.S., thinking that they're going out there and defending the country when really they're helping the corporations build more bombs. That's really what's taking place. I'd say it's time to get real. So, presenting this, yes, it's always a challenge, and I would say there's no excuses. You've been through a lot. We've all been through a lot. We can do this, or don't, and you get nothing. The thing being is that you must earn your way. There's no more sitting at the seminars. Get up, get going. These people can, again, watch the moaning and groaning. It's like, oh, we got to go pick up trash out there. Well, hey, it's your country. Do you care about anything? So I'm not saying care about the country, but I'm saying that do something. That's all. So, and it's the same way with presenting this. Be ready to be creative and take on the confrontation because you want the confrontation. That's part of the wake up too for people. Sometimes you're going to rattle their cage. I piss people off sometimes, purposely. Yeah, see what they'll say. I do it on the phone all the time. It's like then they can figure it out, but they won't forget me. Or maybe they will.